Hello. I was on the Phonoland website. There's a person that went on there and asked a question, the Jukebox forum. He's contemplating buying one of these USC1 Bandshells. It's a Seeburg 1970-ish Seeburg USC1 Bandshell, and this is the later model, 1 year later. They're kind of similar, very similar. Anyway, he's thinking about buying one of these, and he's asked how does he move it, which is a good question, because if you don't do the right things moving it, it's not going to work when you get it home. So I'm making a quick video here to kind of talk about how to move it. I'm not an expert at it, but I've moved a few of these, so I figure I will give him my 2 cents and hope him the best. Anyway, this is a USC1 Bandshell, and things that open on, just let you know, this top piece you actually pull down. It has a spring in here. It's just kind of tension springs, and this opens up, and there's the digital control center and the amp. Now, that's not the correct amp for it. This is a different amp somebody swapped out, but it's what came with it. Oh, and there's the black box in case you're curious. Anyway, more on that later. But to move this, you really need to make sure that you're not going to damage the mechanism. And if you have your Seeburg the I&O manual, the instructions and operations manual, there's 2 pages in there that talk about this. And so on page 9 of this manual, it's called unblocking. They don't say how to move it. That would make too much sense. And so they call it unblocking, because this is a manual that they wrote for the person that buys it, and they have to unblock it in order for it to run. And so there's a paragraph on how to unblock it, and it refers to the next page, which I just happen to have here, for this diagram on how to unblock, but it never actually tells you how to reblock it. But the object is to do this in reverse. So basically, to unblock it, there's carriage bolts, and they look like this, only there's like, I don't know, probably twice as long. And if you look on this diagram, there's these carriage bolts that are accessible through inside the cash box. If you reach up inside underneath, there's holes drilled up underneath that go up underneath the mechanism. So the idea is you reach your hand down under the cash box with these much longer carriage bolts than this, but about that same size, and you go up and in, and then you can screw it in, and it will actually screw into the mechanism carriage so that it can't move around. So then you say you got to take these 2 out before you can use your brand new one, and likewise we need to put these 2 back in. So if you're, I'm not obviously going to do it, but if you reach your hand way up underneath in here in the cash box, you can feel 2 little holes, and that's where they go. But it's easier kind of to show you that where they go on this one. I'm going to go ahead and open this up. By the way, to open this, if it's unlocked, so then you just simply slide this piece out, and to where you hear it click, and then you can lift it up, and it's going to just drop gently, Mark, one-handed. Okay, drop in there like that, and that's how you can actually get in to change the title strips. But in our case, we're going to take these off all the way. If you're looking for an exciting video, you need to just probably stop watching this, because I'm not making this exciting. I'm making this for someone that wants to know how to move a mech. Alright, so I'm lifting this front piece off. 2 hands obviously is better than 1, but I'm not really good at that with a camera. Actually, I'm going to set this down, because to take this top piece off, you push these springs down on both sides, which then allows this piece just to slide right out. So definitely takes, actually it's a good two-person job, but it's just me right now. Batching it tonight. Alright, so that slides out ever so gently. Don't drop anything. This piece comes right off. And we'll get over there. Alright. So, put those two pieces off. Obviously it's very bright because you got two fluorescent light bulbs in here. So that's probably the next thing that I would do if I was moving this, is I would remove the light bulbs. And whenever I buy new light bulbs, because they always fail, I save the little cartons they come in, these little cardboard tubes. And so that way, whenever I take one out, just when I'm working on it, I put it in the tube, which keeps it from breaking, and if it is to break, it's not going to be in a million pieces everywhere. A little tip for you there. Okay, so getting back to these two carriage bolts. Again, these are much shorter, but they're about that same size, okay? Imagine longer ones. I don't know where my longer ones are at. They're going to come up from underneath, and they're going to mount in, and I'll show you where in just a second. Let's see. Push the Mech start. And then Mech stop twice. Alright. Now if you look down here, there and there, those are holes that are actually drilled into it, and there's holes drilled all the way down underneath, so that's where you reach your hand up and you'd have to screw in these carriage bolts from underneath up through here and into the bottom of the mechanism carriage. And basically what you're doing is you're just making it not move. So the carriage then is stuck stationary in the spot. It can't go side to side because you don't want any of the teeth on this thing, which are right here, moving around, because then you could break the teeth on the clutch, which is obviously not a good thing. So that's the idea on that. Because I don't like lifting 375 pounds, what I do when I'm gonna move a box is I actually remove the whole mechanism unit, and it's a little more time consuming, but I tell you what, when this is a heavy thing, so if I can take this out and then I can screw my short carriage bolts into it, then it takes two people to do that. As long as you don't tilt it much, you can then go and set it somewhere and you can move it on its own. It's much easier to move this carcass of a box without the glass panels and without the mechanism, without the light bulbs. Then you're just moving a piece of furniture basically. And so that's how you actually secure it. There's also, if you think about it, when you're doing that, you've got this, right now you'd have those two bolts that come up. They're basically pulling down on this piece so it can't go anywhere. But this whole mechanism sits on a suspension system, kind of like a shock absorber. There's four of them. There's one here and here. You see this little bolt sticking up. And then there's one right back there, and there's another one you can't see. But it sits on those with springs, so that it allows this thing to wiggle, so that it takes some of the shock out of it. Well, when you put those carriage bolts in, obviously it pulls it down tight. So you could also tighten these four nuts, which would also pull it down nice and tight when you put the carriage bolts in. But obviously you loosen these back up when you remove the carriage bolts. Other thing is, if you're going to actually remove the mechanism like I do, I'm going to do that on a different video because we're already at 9 minutes on this one.